Hi, I'm Rachel Jones with the Rachel Jones team, and I'm here with Adam Dellemonico from Movement Mortgage and Alex Mitchell from Meridian Custom Homes. So in the essence of our new construction November segment that we have been doing, we are going to continue to talk with Alex about things that go on in a new construction transaction. So one of the hot topics in new construction that's still kind of lingering but not as ugly as it was before is delays on new construction. So what are some of the things that you run into as a builder that are just beyond your control and that you could talk to your clients about in advance just to manage their expectations?
Sure, this is really important, and I can say that things have improved dramatically since the worst of the worst during the COVID years. Back then, you could almost not even define what the timeline would be because so much was out of your control. It's much less today, so there's a lot more in our control, and the builders, ourselves included, are able to be much more specific about timelines than we were able to be back then. But there are still some things that are out of our control. What are some of those things? There are still sometimes challenges getting some materials. That does exist. Sometimes it could be weather conditions trying to get a foundation in. People tend to understand that. It can be something as crazy as a building inspector is on a 3-week hiatus and you're relying on him to get to the next step.
And he's the only one in the whole town that can do it. I love it when that happens.
It comes up and you get frustrated, but they deserve time off too.
Right.
But it's frustrating to you and it's frustrating to your client. But I think the timeline and the delays is part of that whole communication that's really critical between the client and the builder. There will be some delays. There'll be periods of time between when one subcontractor is completed and another one's about to start that he might not get in there within 24 hours. So there may be what we call dark days where no one is on your property being proactively moving forward and from a construction standpoint, but they should be few and far between. You shouldn't have too many of those, and you shouldn't have several days one after the other where it's a dark day. Can it happen? Yes, it can. And that's when it's really important for the client to be able to communicate with the builder to get answers and understand what is the builder doing to try to limit the amount of dark days, and is there an opportunity to make up some of those dark days? Sometimes there isn't, but sometimes there is.
So from a setting expectation standpoint, what do you tell the clients as far as communication? Are they reaching out to you directly? Are you emailing? Do you have staff on hand that can answer those quick questions, or say, Alex out right now, but he'll get back to you, by the end of the week? What does that look like?
It's really multiple different ways. We do have one person that's dedicated to communicating by way of email with all of our clients, usually every other week, just telling them, here's what happened in the last 2 weeks. Sometimes they know because they're at the houses frequently.
They're driving by
every day. But
still good to get in driving.
Here's what happens, and here's what the next steps are.
Great.
And it can be, here's what's happened. The next steps are, by the way, we're waiting for the inspector to come out to inspect the insulation before we can deliver the board and hang the board. So there may be some days where it is dark in your house. Expect it. So those expectations are set.
So it's like your transaction coordinator, almost like you would have a transaction coordinator communicating the timelines, what's happened in the past, your weekly update. That's never heard of that with new builds. So that's awesome.
But then also having really great brokers on hand that communicate. They communicate all the positive, and they communicate if there isn't a positive. And then you work together to try to make it as positive as possible.
What kind of setbacks, if any, was going on with you guys with all this rain recently? Does it affect you guys? Does it not affect you? Does it depend on the stage of the new construction?
It has affected us, and usually it's when you're trying to get foundations in or you're at the completion of a house. If you're in a town that requires some stabilization of the lawn, we just had this in Rhode Island where their landscaper came out and landscaped the lawn. You have multiple days of heavy rains and there's a tremendous washout. It's got to be taken care of again. That's one example, but that was infrequent. That was only one particular house. We did have ones where you want to start digging the hole for the foundation, but you don't want to dig a hole and then it becomes a swimming pool. So you're delaying that for some period of time. We're focused on it because it was eating up our weekends. Our weekends were ruined by all the rain. But it really didn't challenge us too much with the rain. We were able to work around.
What about snow? Like we're getting into the winter time. What does that look like for new construction?
People are generally very concerned about the snow. We don't live in Maine, state Maine, so
true.
we get snows, but it's usually stuff we can contend with.
So
it's not real bad. We have had some winters in the past where the cold temperatures are consistent, so it never gets up to a level where we're comfortable pouring the concrete. But we build year round, so it's typically not an issue for us.
That's great.